So welcome to this video, and in this video I'll be showing you how to prepare for a super successful webinar. Webinars are one of the best ways you can promote your business because webinars can help you boost your credibility, can help you boost your brand awareness, can also boost your lead generation, can help you generate quality leads. Then above all, webinars can help you increase your sales. So webinars are important part of our businesses, but you will need to do it well. We need to do it right because you actually have to plan for it and prepare for it. Because if you don't do it right, then you're just going to be getting a lot of thank yous. You're just going to be getting a lot of thumbs up after the webinar and no result or no sales from your webinar. So today we are going to be looking how you can actually plan for your webinar. So what are the things that you need to put in place to actually get results from your webinar? So here's what I need you to do right now. I need you to bring out a pen and a paper, and then we are going to be looking at what you should do or the factors you should consider when actually planning your webinar. So the first thing I want you to do on that plain sheet of paper is at the top of the paper, you're going to write what your goals are. So my webinar goals at the top of the paper, that's what you're going to be putting at the top. Okay, so now we are going to be mapping out the goals. So what are the things that you should actually have or the factors you should consider to have a successful webinar? So the first thing you want to do is you want to ask yourself, how much do I intend to make from this webinar? So how much do you want to make from your webinar or the webinar you actually have or you're putting out? So for example, you want to make $10,000 selling a $297 product. So that's your goal. That's your financial goal. That's what you want to make at the end of the webinar. So you have to make $10,000 selling a $297 product. So the next question you're going to ask yourself is, how many customers do I need to reach my goal? So how many customers do you actually need to convert from that webinar to reach your goals, to reach your goal of $10,000? Now, that means for this example that we are giving right now, you need 34 customers. So you need to have 34 customers buying your product at $297 for you to make $10,000. So when you have all those plans out, it makes it easy for you to know what you're doing or what you're going to be, how you're going to be doing your marketing. Okay, the next question you're going to ask yourself is, how many people do I need to attend my webinar live? So one thing you need to have in mind is the conversion rates for webinars are usually around 10 to 30%. That means 10 to 30% of live attendees. So that means if you have 10 people on your webinar, you're going to be converting a minimum of 1 person, 1 to 3%, right? So how many people do you need to attend your webinar? Or in my own case here, how many people do I need to attend my webinar to actually get 34 people paying for my product? So if I need 34 people, and let's use the minimum here, which is 10%. So if I need 34 people, that means I need 340 people to attend my webinar so that when I convert 10% of them, I'll be able to get 34 people or 34 sales or 34 new customers. So you need to plan all these things out. And this is what a lot of people do not do. That's why they usually have failed webinars. So the next question you ask yourself is, how many people do I need to register for my webinar? So of course, most times we would say, I need 340 people to register for my webinar, and then I will get 34 people. It doesn't really work that way. If you need 340 people to attend your webinar live, then you need much more than that to actually register for the webinar. So the registration to attendance rate of webinars is usually between 30 to 35%. That means about 30 to 35% of all the people who registered for your webinar would attend live. Then if a small portion of them would watch the replay, but what we are most concerned about right now is the live attendees, because there's this vibe that comes with those who attend the webinar live. Okay, so how many people do I need to register for my webinar? So in my case, I need 340 people to actually attend live. I need to get 34 customers and I need to make $10,000. That means if I do 30% of 1,133, I'm going to get approximately 340 people. So that means I need 1,133 133 people to actually attend or to actually register for my webinar so that I can get 340 people attending that webinar live. So now you already know what your goal is. So this is what you should do to get results from your webinar. So now let's look at the other things you should do. Now, how to now achieve this goal, how to get 1,133 people registering for my webinar would be my next plan. So what should be my marketing plan right now? So that I'm able to get 1,133 people actually registering for my webinar. So the first question I will ask myself is, where do my ideal audience hang out and how do I get them? So your ideal audience can be hanging out anywhere. They can be on social media, they can be on the pages of influencers, but how do you get them out of there? That would be the question. So these are the questions you ask yourself. Do you have micro influencers in your niche? Do you have them in your niche? So who are micro influencers? Micro influencers are just people who have some form of influence. They're just beginning their social media journey. They have followers, very active followers, around 10,000, 20,000 people. So our micro influencers are not going to really charge you for advert rates. So the advert rates are still on a minimal level, unlike the very large influencers. So do you have these tiny influencers that you can pay? You can pay so many of them to actually do or send the word out for you so that you can get your audience from them. And make sure that any influencer you're using, they have the kind of audience that you want. Okay, so you need to actually do your research and know that this influencer has my kind of audience before you pay that influencer to promote your stuff or your webinar. The next question you want to ask yourself is, what media platform should I use? What media platform should you use to promote your business? So sometimes you can use Facebook and Instagram advertising, which is one of the best ways to promote your stuff. You can use Google advertising, and you have blogs or media sites in your industry or around the things that you promote, or blogs that have your kind of audience. Then you can reach out to them and see if they can do a word out there for you, or they can do a sponsored post for you, or they can just put your banner on their blog for a small fee. So the next question you ask yourself is, do you have the organic reach? Organic reach is one of the best ways to actually promote your store, because you're promoting it to people who already know you. So do you already have YouTube subscribers? Do you have Facebook followers? Do you have Instagram followers? Do you have Twitter followers? And make sure that the followers you have actually are interested in the kind of things you do. They're interested in the kind of products that you have in stock, or they're interested in the kind of things you do in your business, because that way you're going to get better results, and you're going to even get warm audience to register for your webinars, which is usually one of the best kind of audience you can get to attend your webinar. So do you have all this kind of audiences? So map it out and make sure that you map it out so that you promote your webinars to them. Then the last one is, do you have friends who can do a shout out? This is the last one. Do you have friends who can actually do a shout out for you? So look at all your friends, look at the audience, kind of audience that they have. Can they do a shout out for you? Can they put the word out there for you? Because the more people you can get to your webinar, then the better your conversion would be. The more people you're able to get on your live, and the better your conversion would be. So these are all the things that you need to ask yourself while planning or preparing for your webinar. So the next thing you want to do is your webinar content. So one thing you will need to plan out is your content. A lot of people who do webinars will only plan for the webinar content, right? They only want to plan for their webinar presentation. You see them soaking up all their energy to do their presentation and make sure that presentation comes out very well. But they fail to look at the pre-webinar content and the post-webinar content. So we have the pre-webinar content, we have the webinar content itself, and we have the post-webinar content. So what is the pre-webinar content? Pre-webinar content are the content you put out to get people to actually register for the webinar, number one. And number two, to get people to attend the webinar. So everything you do before the webinar to get people to attend, to get people to register, and then to get people to attend, those are your pre-webinar content. So the pre-webinar content will always consist of your registration page, the content you have on your registration page, which should have the benefits of the webinar. That's the benefit, the shift, the transformation that they are going to get by registering for your webinar. Then the content you put out on social media to let people know about your webinar, all those kind of content fall into the pre-webinar content. And then the post-registration follow-up. So when people register, there should be a post-registration follow-up. So don't say, because these people already registered for my webinar, they should remember. There was a time I registered for a webinar and I was not reminded, and I totally forgot about that webinar. People have things going on in their lives. So you need to have a post-webinar registration follow-up to remind them of the webinar, So all this content would fall into your pre-webinar content. So pre-webinar content should always have benefit. So what are the benefits people would get if they attend your webinar? So you should always talk about the benefits of the webinar, the transformation they are going to get. So because people care about themselves, they don't really care about you, they don't really care about your product. What they care is the value they would get. What they care about is the transformation they would get. So you also need to talk about the shifts they will get. You would shift the kind of shift they would get by time they attend your webinar. Then the feedback from other people who have attended your webinar previously. This feedback will actually give them the motivation to register and attend your webinar, because they've seen that other people actually got results from attending your webinar. So if they attend your webinar, they're probably going to get results too. Then you need to put out testimonials. Then tip of the iceberg. You need to give people tip of the iceberg. For example, if I were to be a weight loss expert, I have my framework is 5 steps. I have a 5-step framework to actually help people burn fat fast. So what I can do is I can pick the first step. So maybe the first step is about brain activity, how you can get your brain activity to help you. I don't know if that's something, but I'm not a weight loss expert, so I cannot say for sure if that is part of it. So how you can get your brain activity to help you lose weight. So I talk about what brain activity is and why it is important. Then at the end of the day, I'll tell them that this brain activity doesn't work alone. There are 4 other steps that will work with this brain activity to help you get better results. And these 4 other steps will be discussed in the webinar. So that way I boost their interest and get them to anticipate the webinar, because I've shown them one thing that blew their minds, so they really want to attend the webinar to get the other stuff. Then the next one is your webinar content. Your webinar content is just basically, you need to plan for that also. It's just basically your webinar presentation, your webinar notes, your webinar worksheets. If there are worksheets that you're going to be giving them, you need to get all those things out and ready. Then lastly is your post-webinar content. So the fact that they attended your webinar and you told them about your products doesn't really mean that they will buy immediately. They might not buy immediately, so you need to follow up on them. You also need to send them the replay. There are people who could not attend the webinar, so they need the replay. They need you to, they really probably could not attend because of they were in different time zones. They were probably at work when you were doing the webinar, so they could not attend at that time. So you need to actually get out the replay for them so that they can watch the replays. You also need to follow up on those who attended the webinar so that they can buy your product. The fact that they didn't buy right there in the webinar doesn't mean that they don't need your product. So there should be some form of follow-up to them to actually get them to buy your product. Then you also share case studies. So case studies of other people who have actually gotten your products in the past and they got results from it. So these case studies will help people make an informed decision to buy your product. Then lastly, what we're going to talk about is the final note. The final note is when you're doing your webinars, there are so many things that would be in place, especially if you're doing it for the very first time. If you're doing it for the very first time, your slides are just the first time you're doing your slides and all that. So the first thing you want to do is make sure you're tying up loose ends. You check your microphones to make sure they are working, check your webinar software, test them, check your lighting. If possible, get a trusted friend to join you for a test run, right? So get a trusted friend, get on camera with the person, test all those things, test the microphone, check your slides, check your lighting, check your internet to make sure that internet is strong enough, check your registration page to make sure that everything connects the way it should connect, check your follow-up system. So if you're using email marketing, check your email marketing system to make sure that everything is perfectly working right before you launch out that webinar. Then ask for help if you really need to, because nobody's an island of knowledge. You don't know everything. You're an expert at what you do. You might not be an expert at maybe creating registration pages, creating marketing system and all that. So you can ask an expert for help. You don't really have to do everything yourself, so that you have more time to face your presentation and get results from it. Then lastly, you need to calm your nerves. It's easy, especially if you're doing it for the first time, to have a panic attack when you're doing your webinar. What people think, is it going to come out right? You need to really calm down and relax. You've done your slide, you've tested everything is fine. Get proper rest. Sleep if you can. Especially a day to your webinar, get as much rest as you can. Drink a lot of water and sleep if you really have to. Then on the day of your webinar, you're going to be really fresh and ready for your webinar. So below in the description of this video, you're going to see the worksheet of this video, so that you can use that worksheet to plan for your webinar. So you can download the worksheet and then use it for your webinar planning. So if you like this content and you're getting more content like this on this channel, make sure you like, you subscribe, and comment below and let me know what you think about these tips that you just got. So I'll see you some other time.